Hi everyone, welcome to Healing from the Inside Out Conversations. I'm Antonella Traino and we have a very special guest on today. And before I actually introduce him, I just want to remind you that the conversations we have on here are to inspire you and hopefully also give you a different way of looking at things along your own healing journey. So also the information that we share does not replace any medical or psychological advice, and also is not as a replacement to any medication or treatments that you're having. So let's get stuck in. So I just want to introduce you to somebody very special. His name's Ray Behan. He's also known as the man who changed his brain. And Ray has a very amazing and inspiring story about his journey with a particular condition, and you know how he dealt with that and how he was able to overcome it. So Ray Behan, he was originally diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy, but I won't tell you any of his story, so I will pass you over to Ray. Hi, Ray. Thanks for coming today.
Great to be here. Great to be here. Looking forward to it. Thrilled.
And it's great to have you here.
Of course.
So, Ray, tell us a little bit. So, you know, we know that you had temporal lobe epilepsy, but tell us a little bit about your story before your diagnosis.
Sure. So, originally it all started and came about when I was 7 years of age, and I lived in inner city Dublin, and I was on a playground, and I was standing on a steel frame that was quite high, and I fell from the top of that frame, and apparently as my skull hit the ground, I'm told that I didn't put my hands out to protect my head, so I may have been banged my head on the way down to the ground, and my hands didn't reach out to protect my head, to do what you would do naturally. So I landed just here on this top left frame of my head, just here, and there's a part here which is still indentation today, has an indentation in there today, so evidence of that accident. And I was 7 when that happened, and then after leaving hospital I marched off back to school again. And in school in inner city Dublin, it's quite can be quite tough and quite brutal. And if you're anyway backward, you're going to feel it. You're going to really feel it. Mm-hmm. So the teachers in my inner city school soon realized that I couldn't keep up with everybody else. Now, thankfully, I'm from a really big Dublin family, and I'm from an inner city Dublin family, and a lot of my uncles were truck drivers. And, you know, back in the day, if, you know, you valued your safety and your health, you didn't mess with a Behan, you didn't mess with a truck driver, and you certainly didn't mess with somebody from the inner city. So the brothers couldn't, or the school teachers couldn't, you know, take it out on me the way they truly wanted to. And I must have frustrated the living daylights out of them because I just couldn't learn. Mm-hmm. So that then led on to just 8 years of not physical abuse. I never got that because of my family. They knew my uncles would be there that night. But definitely they gave me the mental abuse, and that got to the stage whereby just going to school was just massively fearful. So every day for 8 years, I was just afraid. And I was certainly afraid of banging my head again. And the brothers were not, the school teachers and brothers were not removed from belting you on the head with something, not just with their hand. You know, you could get belted with a duster on the back of the head. So I was really scared of getting a bang on my head again after recovering from that one. And so there was 8 years of stress of that, plus the head injury. And then it was from that I realized that something was very different. My world was different. My ability to communicate was different. And just my habits were different to other people. And I was definitely ostracized by school teachers, by other kids. It was just different. And that stress is what I'm told led to me developing, becoming a temporal lobe epileptic. And then as a temporal lobe epileptic, you do two things. You either fight it and try to deal with it. There's three things, actually. You fight it and try to deal with it, or you become addicted to a drug, a narcotic, or alcohol, because with drugs and alcohol, you do not have temporal lobe epileptic fits. And that was going to be an easy choice. That was probably my easiest choice to do that. And you go on medication. So eventually I took the medication route. I didn't want to take the alcohol route. It would have been an easy one to do. So I took the medication and Tegretol, and it was really powerful. Like, it really, really, really worked.
Mm-hmm.
And
so, how many years after your accident that you developed temporal lobe epilepsy? Was it 8 years later? How long after the accident?
The fits that I experienced from being a temporal lobe epileptic, I was having those fits definitely when I was in my young years. So I would have been in my early teens. Mm-hmm. And it's something that kind of developed gradually. So that awareness that something is different and things are different inside can also have its own upside. It can also drive you to do things that are different to most people do. And that was by default. That was by accident that I started to do things and look at things different ways than other people looked at them. Mm-hmm. And it was a realization of that later that definitely led onto a completely different path.
So that was during those 8 years of abuse and stress that you went through. That's as you started to notice these changes and these fits started to come on.
And thinking, my whole concept and thinking changed because I had to, a temporal lobe epileptic fit is a very harrowing experience, and you just don't want it. You just don't want to be there. It's just really, really harrowing. It's like the doors of hell open in front of you, and every possible negative, heavy emotion that your body is geared to deal with, it no longer has the gearing and the mechanism to deal with that. And those emotions from the behind the doors of hell just smother your body and your mind in an instant, and you have no recourse. You've no way out. You can't back down, and you've no mechanism to deal with that. So all you're driven to do is escape.
Mm-hmm. So temporal lobe epilepsy isn't like epilepsy where you have physical external fits.
No, we have internal fits. So we have internal fits in the mind which affect the body.
So explain what those internal fits exactly are like.
Good question. Very difficult to put into words. But if I could just go back to what I said there a moment ago, it would be just a situation that just sparks something off for a moment, and you can be anywhere without notice. And in that moment, the most fearful of all human emotions are shrouding your body, and you're swimming in it, and there's no life buoy. You can't get out, so you just have to ride it out. Mm-hmm. So there was moments that I thought I was schizophrenic, paranoid schizophrenic, and I was reading about all this stuff too. So I was reading about epilepsy and how, how the brain works. So I was reading all of these, different terms around schizophrenia. And I really thought that I had all these massive multiple personalities inside. Mm-hmm. So that is the best way that I can explain that. And then the emotion in your body, I used to describe it at the time as demons. It was like you had these massive amount of demons in your body that were just ripping your stomach apart with their emotional expression. Very heavy.
So when were you actually diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy?
I was diagnosed eventually in the year 2000.
Okay, so you went through like a big part of your life not knowing what it was.
Not knowing what it was, and afraid to know what it was. And I definitely didn't want to know. I just didn't want to be told that this is wrong with you. I didn't want to be that person that was told that something wrong with me. So I just dealt with it myself, and I didn't take the alcohol route.
Yeah.
I just dealt with myself. Yeah.
So you dealt with it with no medication and no drugs or alcohol. You just dealt with it. So how did you deal with such a thing?
I just had to ride it out, and but I was also learning in dealing with it. I think, you know, hope is an inspiration that gives, you know, desperation a real challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to start to learn and read about the brain. And I can't even recall how I started reading about the brain, because this was back in the day where there was no internet. I'm in Ireland. You don't buy an inspiration book in Ireland. I can't remember, you know, where you'd even buy them. But somehow they were just coming to me.
Yeah.
I was being given sheets of paper. I remember somebody one day handing me this clipped group of probably 100 pages of A4 pages around the brain. And in that clipping of pages was a paragraph or a section about quantum physics. And that changed everything.
Right. Okay. So is that, from that moment, is that when you started to embark on your own inner healing journey?
Yes, indeed. But I think it started a lot earlier in the day. And I remember, because this like ran my life, like this ran my whole life. So I was just looking for a way out somewhere. And I went to church every day, as a 9-year-old, which you just didn't do. I mean, 9-year-olds in Dublin, you don't go to church every day. You're dragged to mass on Sunday, you know, hesitantly. You don't go voluntarily. So I would go into the church next to my school. My school was in a cathedral-like building, and I would go there every day looking for hope. And because it's such a dominant part of your life, you're thinking different to other people, because you're trying to solve a problem that other people don't have. And thinking like unlike other people, trying to solve a problem that other people don't have, is what we call creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So there's creativity combined with adaptability. So I had to learn to adapt, and I had to learn to fit into a world that wasn't accepting me. People on the street that weren't accepting me, and people, teachers in school that weren't accepting me.
Mm-hmm.
So that really fires up a whole sense of creativity and different thinking. And I was reading about the universe, the size of the universe, and so on, which just came into the whole brain thing. It kind of, all this information came to me at the one time. And I remember one day I was on a bus. I was on a double-story bus, and I was turning off a street in Dublin, heading into the city. The street's called Amiens Street, turning into Talbot Street. And as I turned in there, I remember thinking, I was probably about between 11 and 14, something around there, thinking that everything behind me was just an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And what if everything behind me was disappearing into a different reality? And the reality that was in front of me was a consequence of my intention. I was creating this reality, but there was really nothing behind me. That was from reading some basic books. That was the first moment that I really became hooked on this whole thing of alternate realities, quantum physics, consciousness, and the brain and consciousness not being an emergent quality of brain activity. Mm-hmm. Way back in the day. And I didn't even understand the word quantum physics back then, by the way. I didn't read the word quantum physics till I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you embarked on this journey once you were diagnosed?
I was on the journey well before then. I was on the discovery and learning journey, like I said, when I was, you know, in my teens. I was reading about space and time, which came from trying to read something about the brain, which talked about alternate realities and so on. And then into quantum physics, which I started to tap into from memory, you know, in around my 20s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mid to late 20s, somewhere around there. And that really captured me. That was a bang moment, a moment of, wow, I gotta know this stuff. I gotta find this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Ray, I know you told us a little bit about, you know, how it all happened, but who were you being before your diagnosis? So what was your state of being before that?
There was two, I suppose. There was the ordered state of being. There was the part of me that was very, very much engrossed in learning and studying and reading. And that was a great part of, you know, my life then. But there was also the more dominant part of my life, which was the messy part. And that was disorder, life of ups and downs, making it and breaking it again, creating and destroying, building businesses and destroying them, building success and destroying that. And there was no consistency in who I was. And I had multiple masks. So I would mask up every single day to a high extent. And that mask was a mask of massive pretentiousness. Always adapting. So in situations, I would adapt into different personalities in different situations to deal with those situations, and putting it out there. The look at me ego was huge, and probably bordering on narcissism. I would think, certainly for people around me, it would have been very difficult for them to be around me, because it's difficult to be with an egotist and a narcissist.
And so, you know, we could say that you were addicted to that way of being, because it obviously gave you something. It gave you a sense of, what did it give you?
Escape. I was able to escape. So I was able not to be that person who was having those fits, and I was able to mask up and just pretend that it wasn't real. So the more pretentious that I came, you know, the more my ego grew to a stage whereby it's not a healthy ego to have. And the turmoil internally was just massive. It was messy.
Yeah. So then tell us more about then, you know, what you did in order to heal. So first up, obviously, did you go on medication?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's right. You said you went on Tegretol, but when you started, because you started your healing journey before you were put on medication.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about your healing journey.
I think that's got to be the most interesting part of the whole thing. So what happened was I learned about the brain's malleability in a very basic way. I didn't know the 187 brain regions. I didn't know what they'd done, but I knew the brain was adaptable. And I knew it was like a mechanoset, whereby by using particular tools, mind tools, we can get into the mechanoset and we can unbolt all of the legs and arms and cages and rakes and pull the whole mechanoset of our brain down and rebuild it again. And I knew that was not a possibility, that was real. That was real science, real true science. And then from a quantum perspective, I also knew that there was opportunities to create alternate realities, which is, you know, the science of quantum mechanics, the tools to create new realities, not quantum physics, different. And the funny thing was that I was speaking this stuff, this information, this knowledge to friends, whatever, groups. I was working in different organizations, and I would share this information and whatever, and people would sit around and, you know, listen to that, because I think quantum physics and consciousness is quite intriguing. And I would tell people, you can do this, and you can create this, and you can do this, but I never, ever, ever believed that it would work for me, ever. Then,
so you knew all about this, but you didn't think that it would actually work for you.
Which is what most people now, that is the kind of innate, almost ingrained belief of most people. They know there's more. They know there's greater opportunity. They know there's greater things that they can do. And they know that it's open and it's there for them, ready for the taking. But they're so ingrained in their old perceptions that were inflicted on them when they were growing up. And the infliction of those negative perceptions destroys their ability to believe that there is something greater for them. And they believe, we have this internal voice that says, yes, it will work for somebody else, but won't work for me. And that's wrong.
Yeah. But it goes even further than belief, though, you know, even though they don't believe it's for them, but it goes beyond that. It goes, you know, like you're talking about what was told to them as they grew up and so on, but it's more about, you know, what's been programmed into them, you know, what's been programmed neurologically and biologically.
Well, belief would tell itself that it's a perception. Belief is a derivative, is a conglomerate of all of our past experience put together. And when those past experiences put together converge into what we call beliefs and convert then into what we call perceptions, Perceptions then form together to create our personality. So personality is a conglomerate of perceptions, but the problem with the perceptions, which have their foundation in belief, is that they all came from our experiences growing up. And everything that we experience growing up in the shape of information is knowledge and information imparted on us by the people who raised us. So eventually then, that when we adapt that into our personality, that becomes habitual. So personality is a conglomerate of habits, all derived from beliefs, which are all taken from our experiences growing up. So when you say it's beyond, it's, you know, it's greater, it's deeper, I should say, than belief. When you say that, that is the truth, is that it's not only greater than belief, it actually forms the structure of our whole body and our mind together to the stage whereby when we have that personality firmed in our mind, and our mind at one stage when we're growing up is set, so it's set in motion, it's right then that we can look in the mirror and say, this is me and this is my life, and we believe that what's looking back at us is us, and that's wrong.
And so even though we want to change, even though we want to believe in its possibility, we just can't, because it's so, you know, we've been structured that way now.
So what happens there is that we have what I call CCEs, which are conscious complex entities. So we have a CCE, we have a gathering of CCEs for everything, complex conscious entities. And they kind of go like this. If, for example, you're going on a diet and you're on your diet and you decide one day that you're going to have a sneaky ice cream, well, you will hear a voice internally say to you, it's only one ice cream. It won't harm you. You know, well, excuse me. It won't harm you. I just swallowed a fly there. Excuse me. It won't harm you. Eat the ice cream. It's fine. That's a CCE. That's a conscious complex entity speaking back to us. The moment we hold the ice cream in our hand and we're about to eat it on our diet, there's another voice that says, don't do it. You'll have to work it off. You're breaking your agreement with yourself. You're destroying your resolution. You won't lose weight if you do this. You'll only have another one tomorrow. So we have these different voices that speak to us. And for everything that we want to do in our life, we have a gathering of an opposement of conscious complex entities. Now, these conscious complex entities are a derivative of brain function. So in other words, they need space in our brain where they can live and reside. So they literally embed themselves in what we call neural pathways, where they combine together by utilizing synapses. And these long-term ancient memories, old memories, embed themselves into the left brain analytical and embed themselves into the geographical landscape of the brain to form together. And they combine by using masses of brain structure. So this brain structure, which gives life and residence to these complex conscious entities, these internal opinions, just call them for simplicity, that we have, is what I call the super subconscious mind. And the super subconscious mind, I think, Antonella, is beyond the conscious mind. It is so secretive. It is so hidden. It is so adaptable. It is so able to escape even our unconscious thinking, that it has the ability and control and command to command and control our lives. And for most people, it does it until the day we're on the elevator out of here, never realizing what it was that was destroying our dream and our goal. But the good thing about it is that these beliefs, we can smoke them out of the brain, and the brain has an anomaly, and it has a power value as well. And that power value is what we call synaptic pruning. So the brain can prune itself. And in pruning itself, then we can replant neural pathways into new memories, causing new emotions, developing into a new personality, which changes our actions and changes our life. And anybody on this planet who is capable of seeing, thinking, walking, breathing, being, has the ability to tap into this phenomenon that we call brain adaptability or a neuroplasticity. Everybody can tap into that. If they just would take on board the toolkit, the internal toolkit, which is based on knowledge to deal with that, everybody can change their life in an instant. So if I wrote an article the other day, and it was talking about ordinary people and extraordinary people. And I suppose the overarching view of that article that the message that I wanted to get out was that the difference between an ordinary person and an extraordinary person is that one has learned to control their mind where the other pretends that they cannot. And it is pretentious to think that we cannot control our mind.
So then, Ray, even though you knew all of this stuff, you said that you had trouble believing it as well.
No, I believed it. I just didn't believe that it was that I could adapt that into my life and I could become something as a consequence of that.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't believe it, but then, so what did you do then? So if you didn't think you could adapt it into your life, what did you do then in order to heal?
I sat down one day and I watched a couple of clips of some great speakers who were talking about this whole quantum physics and consciousness. And in doing that, they were able to deliver it to me just watching video clips, back in the day, CDs, whatever we used. And they were able to deliver that information to me in a way that I was able to combine it together. And just by virtue, I think, of seeing that and being able to understand how to combine it together. And when we do that, it's kind of corroboration. And if we have internal corroboration raises self-belief. So it was in that moment, watching those video clips, that gave me the internal corroboration, which raised my self-belief. And then I knew this is it.
So you got to the point. You got to the point where you actually had self-belief.
I had belief that the process was, that I was not exempt from this process that I could participate in, that it would change me just as it would change other people. So,
okay. So you put your faith in that now?
Yes, basically.
Any doubt?
Yes, I had doubt. Yes. Yeah. Even though I'd done the work, I still had doubt. Yes.
So what did you do? So you still had doubt, but did you still keep doing what you had to do? What were you doing to overcome this doubt? What were you doing to create that self-belief? Because even though you said you were listening to these clips and it was building your self-belief, but I mean, did you have to keep doing it? Like, you didn't just watch one and then had the self-belief, like you had to keep watching them. Were you watching them over and over again? And what were you doing to build that self-belief internally, to reduce the doubt that you had going on internally?
So I realized that this emergent quality of the brain, which isn't the truth, by the way, but it was just seemed to make sense back then, that consciousness is an emergent quality of brain activity, which is not true, but I definitely believe that, and the science was kind of leaning that way as well. So what happened to me was that one day I was walking through a shopping area, and out of the blue, I just started to just feel this fit coming on, and it takes 2 seconds. It's here really quickly. So I knew, here we go again. And because I was learning all of this stuff, something triggered inside of me. And for the first time ever, I believe, and this is what was happening, so I can only tell you what I believe because I believe that it happened, is that the conscious, heartfelt center of me, the real me, not the false masked up me, was able to step outside of my head for a moment, out of my body for a moment, and it stepped up to my left side, just up here at my, say, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and it stepped right up here. And I was literally looking back down on my body in pain and in difficulty, but my conscious self was able to escape that pain. So
you'd have like an out-of-body experience.
Out-of-body experience, yes.
And then that would give you relief, and did you feel so much better in the moment?
This was a gift from heaven, just that there, right.
But what else did it give you? Like, it obviously gave you relief from the pain, but because you were stepping out of your body, did you feel, a sense of wholeness, a sense of connection? What were you feeling?
Yeah, I was in a different mind. So I was able to combine that experience in doing that with the clips and the videos and what I was watching and reviewing. And I just became a great student. So I would watch a video for an hour and I would write everything out, the whole video. I would just write it out on paper. And then I would read it to the stage where I could nearly narrate it. So I combined that then, and then I started to meditate. And I didn't even know that I was meditating. So I was sitting in a quiet room and I was just quiet. It wasn't a guided meditation. There was no music. It was just me. And I was able to start visualizing my brain rewiring itself. And in my meditation, I was allowing this part of me that had stepped outside of me that day, that real me that I believed was the real me, excuse me. And I was allowing it to come back into my body in my meditation and take control and rewire my brain. And that's what I visualized.
Right. So you were becoming that you that was out here, that was whole and complete and at ease and pain-free.
I was always that me that was outside of me. It was always in there, but it was just suppressed. So what I'd done was I handed my problem in my meditation over to that part of me and said, you're in charge, you're in control, you know what to do, now you fix it. And I'm giving you the permission now to fix this. And I'm tired of this journey and I'm happy to go on your journey. So it was almost to, I think when you're meditating, you've got to be very, very specific. You have to be very clear in what it is that you're putting out there. You have to paint a picture of where you want to go and what you want to do. And that picture has to be on a canvas, in your mind, and you have to see that picture with absolute clarity. Now, when you do that type of work, the brain doesn't have the ability to create a picture in your head that's so clear that you could look out on a landscape and it would be to the same degree with the same pixelation of the landscape. So what you've got to do in your meditation is when you create a picture, there's a lot of gray areas in that picture. But what you can do is you can focus on different aspects of the picture and become really familiar with them and teach your brain to become familiar with them so that when you're not meditating anymore and you're driving to work or you're going shopping, whatever you're doing, you can train your brain to start to visualize and see those things that it's creating and still hand your problem over to that other part that we all carry, that genie in the bottle.
So almost could it even be like your higher self?
And yeah, it could absolutely, it is your higher self. It is your higher state of consciousness.
Yeah, and so you did this every day, did you? Is this exactly what you did every day? So you would sit in silence and you would continue to visualize that and picture that and memorize that and become that every day?
And trained my brain to become an expert at it, that I could do it in an instant.
And was that difficult? Because were you coming up against your own doubts and the symptoms of it coming up again? Was that going on while you were doing this?
Definitely. So the doubter was sitting right next door to the creator. Yeah. But it was only a matter of time before the creator became more powerful to the doubter, because consciousness and brain and so on and activity and life itself is all a consequence of energy. So what we focus and send our energy into, there's a law in energy, the thermodynamics of energy, for example, and the thermodynamics of energy state that whatever part of a system is not given energy, time, which means time, attention, focus, which isn't given energy, will suffer from a greater level or the natural level of entropy, and entropy is destruction. On the other hand, the laws of thermodynamics state this: whatever we put energy into, time, effort we put into, and focus, that will suffer from what's called neg entropy. Now, suffer is not the true word, of course, because neg entropy is creation. It is the opposite to destruction. It is manufacturing. So in meditation, we're taking energy, we're slowing down entropy, we're creating neg entropy by creating order, from disorder to order. That's what meditation does.
Yeah. So then, a person doesn't need to, worry or try and get rid of their doubt. They just need to focus on this new aspect of themselves and allow the doubt, to sit beside them. And then eventually that doubt will start to dismantle itself and disappear as you create this whole new way of being, this whole new life.
I began to love the process of loving my doubter. And I learned that when I was 23. I remember that one very well. How to love my greatest critic. Now I'm talking about my physical critic, my actual real life people critics. How to see what it was that they gave me. So I found that by welcoming my doubter, by embracing my doubter, and by saying, you're part of my journey, but you're giving me something, and welcoming it in, it was easier to overcome the doubt than fighting it. So it's like jujitsu. Jiu-jitsu is the martial art of using the other person's power that they're delivering to you against them. So using their energy that they're putting into attacking you, into literally reflecting back on them again, reversing it. And loving the doubter and appreciating it and understanding it is the mental art of jiu-jitsu. It's using its own energy against itself to the stage that it gets confused and goes, what am I doing here in the first place? I'm out.
Yeah, because that's that's one of the problems that many people face, including myself in trying to change, is that those parts of yourself keep creeping up. And, rather than trying to get rid of them, it's really seeing what it's giving you and appreciating it, and just seeing it for what it is. And by doing that, it's not to either condemn or condone it, but it's to see how it's serving you. And the more you can see that, the more it releases its hold on you. So it's really important to see it's there, acknowledge it's there, appreciate what it's giving you, and not give it any more attention.
Yes, but our data has friends too. So egos birds of a feather flock together. So egos like hanging out with like-minded egos. Now we all have an ego, by the way, so I'm not using that in a kind of a disingenuous term. Everybody has an ego. It's that part of us.
Yeah.
And life has this habit of sending you curveballs when you're trying to do something. So yes, you can conquer your own doubt, and no doubt about that. But you got to be ready now for the external doubt, because it's going to come your way. So that doubt might be criticism from somebody that you never got criticized from before. It might be a roadblock in the journey on your way to creating that new future that you want to create for yourself, that you would never have experienced before, because you'd never gone down this road before. So now you've got a challenge that you're completely unfamiliar with, that you've never seen before. And it's being prepared and ready for that person that's going to criticize you and shut you down, and that person might be somebody who loves you, or being ready for that physical roadblock ahead, and realizing that these are pure indications that, number one, you're alive, number two, you're not in heaven yet, and number three, you're on the right journey. And you need the doubt. You need a doubt, and you need a critic, because the day that we don't have doubt and critic, we're in heaven. It's all over.
Yeah, absolutely. So then,
by the way, that's a different journey, and that's a fine journey too. But from a practical, physical life perspective, we got to be ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you kept implementing this in your day every day. So then, what happened? What happened after you kept doing it every day? Did the doubt ever go away? Did you start noticing a difference? Did you start to notice that the fits were coming on less? What was happening as you did this? Did you notice a change in your health?
Yeah. There was a moment whereby I just knew that I had it in the bag. I just knew I knew it had worked. I just knew it.
How did you know?
And I was still on my medication.
How did you know it was in the bag?
There was a moment whereby there was just something inside of me that I was trying to spend so much time trying to convince it that it went into reverse gear, and it convinced me that something had shifted and changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I trusted that. I trusted that feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
there was no, we all have voices in our head. We talk to ourselves all day long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got 60,000 thoughts a day. We have two thoughts for every breath that we take. You know, there's a lot of activity going on in there. You know, so it's in that moment, then it was just listening to that voice, and it was then that I just went off my medication and I just stopped taking it.
So you just stopped taking it out of your own accord?
Yeah.
Which is, you know, obviously not something that you would advise others to do, but you yourself chose to do that. And then what happened? Did you go back to see your doctor? Did you have any scans? What happened?
Yep. I went to my doctor because I knew my medical records had me marked as temporal lobe epileptic. You know, I knew that because I was diagnosed by a psychiatrist, and you know, I had quite a thick diagnosis. I think it was about this many pages of, you know, interview after interview after interview, and then he came to the conclusion, right, this is what you've got, and this is your medication, and it worked magnificently well. So I went back to my doctor. His name was young guy. His name was James. I said, James, whatever I got to do. I know you guys have me down as having temporal lobe epilepsy, but I ain't got it no more. So I want to just clear it on my record that I just don't have it anymore. And I remember James saying to me, are you taking your medication? Now, he's just a GP, by the way. Are you taking your medication? And I said, haven't taken it for 3 months. And he said, no fits? And I said, no fits. So he sent me off to a neurologist who sent me for a sleep-deprived EEG. And what happens then is you do your sleep-deprived EEG, and then the results, you don't take the results away. The results are sent to your facilitating neurologist, and he called me in for an appointment. I went to the appointment to my neurologist. I remember it well. I won't mention his name, but you know, he definitely didn't have a great bedside manner. He was just a completely robotic doctor. Didn't care whether you were on your last breath. It was just, here's a prescription. Hope you do well. See you later. Yeah. And he was, I was quite stunned by what had happened. Like, I got to tell you, I was really, really stumped by this thing. Really was. And I was really excited about it because it worked. All these years of reading books, watching videos, learning, difficulties, fits, demons, wow, all this stuff, just all of a sudden, bang, it just ended. Probably, by the way, over about a 3-month period. And that I can recall that it took for that. And he looked at the results. He sat there in his desk, and there was things going on, and he said, you don't have temporal lobe epilepsy anymore. Fantastic. And I said, yeah, I said, you know, I was waiting for the champagne and bubbles and flowers, and I thought the secretary was going to come in with a balloon, but there was no bells and whistles. There was nothing. And that was it. I just walked out of the office, and I've never seen those guys from that day to this.
And you've never had a fit since?
Never.
And how long ago was all this?
That was 2013.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think, Ray, you know, what did all of this show you? What did the temporal lobe epilepsy show you? What did this whole experience give you?
Well, the first thing was that the disingenuousness and the fear that the Christian brothers put me through those years, all of that together, that 8 years gave me all of the characteristics that I needed to do the things, the resilience, the courage, the survival mechanism, the adaptability, gave me so much. They were my number one molder. They were my greatest mentors. That was the first thing I got. Second thing I got from that was that it was in that moment that, you know, everything came into order. And now all these past dreams that I'd had where I built and destroyed, I realized I'm able to build and maintain. I'm able to build and create and keep and retain ownership of what it is that I built, because I had the ability now to retain the ownership internally on the inside. And if we don't have the ability to retain ownership of what we want to create on the inside, both emotionally and mentally, well, then we'll never give the body and the mind the instruction that it needs to give the body the action that it needs to develop it and retain it on the outside. We'll build, but we'll destroy. So I realized now that that creative ability was in there. So it was then that I started to apply to different things in different areas of my life. So I was able to slow down and tone down. And the internal chatter, the traffic jam in my head for all those years was gone now. So what that done was that freed up, and I knew it, this is freed up brain space. But I had to make a determination then. I had to make a determination on what am I going to do with this brain space. And it was getting into my meditations then and using that brain real estate, that freed up real estate that I had, these new subdivisions in my head that I could build new things in, new stuff in, put new places into. It was like my brain said to me, hey, here's a whole part of me. Go mold me into whatever it is that you want to turn me into. And it's still happening today.
So what did you build in those subdivisions?
Well, it was in there then that I was able to turn that into different areas of my life, to improve them into different areas of my life. So I was able to apply it to, well, first off, my mental health. That was number one. That was the biggest challenge of all. That was number one. Then I was able to calm down and slow down and focus more on my children. So I definitely left my kids behind for years, even as a single dad, because I just wasn't there. And I remember my oldest daughter saying to me, where are you, Dad? Difficult, you know? And then,
so even though you were present physically, but you weren't present there mentally.
Very, very present physically, very captured in my children's, upbringing and welfare and so on. I was single for a long time, and in that time, I raised myself, one of my children, full 100%, and in that time, I dropped him to school every single day, all my kids. Yeah. I picked them up from school every single day. I never had a babysitter. I made the lunches. I done dinner. I never left my kids with anybody ever in all those years. So I was there and I thought I was doing a good job, but I wasn't. So that was a second change. My mental capacity, now my family changed. Then I was able to roll that into a business. So being creative. And then, as you know, the business, started to take off, and, success now was not only attained, when I think back to it, like we built so much stuff in the past and it was extraordinary. I just destroyed it. As I built it, I just destroyed it. I was the destructor of everything that I and others with me built. Yeah. Now it was time to keep. So then business came about, and now with the workshops that we run and the experiments that we run at those workshops, always being creative, always stepping outside the square, always looking to improve on what it is, looking at what other people are doing and improving on that. And all of that, even with those research and experiments that we do at the workshops, all of that is derived from one thing: the fact that the school teachers and the brothers didn't want me to survive in their world and wanted me to give up and get out. They wanted me out of school. They wanted me to voluntarily go home and say to my mom, I need to go to a different school. They wanted that to happen because I frustrated these people. But I had to be greater than that. So I was always looking at what other people are doing and trying to be greater than that because I was struggling to fit in. And that allows the things that happen today, whereby we do this amazing work and people are in awe of that work.
Yeah, well, that's what gave you your genius.
100%.
Yeah,
it was always part of the story, yes.
Those that know you, Ray, know that, you're not the norm. Like there's, something definitely very unique about you. And, the average person is not like you at all. So, if you hadn't have had all of those experiences, would that have led to the genius that you are today?
And the answer is no, but that doesn't exempt somebody who hasn't had a difficulty in their life from becoming a genius. The only difference in them and what I had to do was I was forced to do it. I had no way out. It was that, death, alcohol. It was going to be something, or just give up and just lie down and accept life for what it was and become a dustman. Nothing wrong with dustmen, but I just didn't want to be a dustman. So we all have the ability to do that. But I think, Antonella, when it comes to the body and how the body functions and the instructions that the body waits to be told how it's to activate, how it's to move, how it's to act, what it's meant to do, because the body doesn't know what to do. That if we hang on to and we languish in long-term negative emotions, long-term negative emotions become perceptions become beliefs, beliefs becomes personality, personality becomes habit, and habit becomes actions, and actions become outcome. So therefore, it's our creativity, and we all have creativity, that is the result of what it is that we've created in our life. So it's our fault that we're successful. It's our fault that we're creative. It's our fault that we've built a great relationship, whatever it is that each individual has done. But it's equally our fault for what we do not have in our lives. We are 100% at fault. It's nothing to do with the government, Julia Gillard, Donald Trump. The economy is completely removed from everybody's ability to be great, to conquer that. My most negative emotion was the emotion of anger. So I was very angry. So when I left school at 15, life was messy. So I was a 16-year-old. I was able to go to a pub. It was inner city. It was Dublin. You go to a pub and you just order a pint of Guinness or a pint of Budweiser. I was 16. 18 is the youngest age for drinking. We didn't carry IDs. Didn't even know what an ID was. Everybody didn't have a driver's license. So the barman would say to me, "Are you 18?" I'd go, "Yeah, sure am." And here you go. Here's 3 pints of Budweiser. And then the violence would start. The fights would start and so on. So my mentor was able, by default, unintentionally able to show me, without knowing that he was showing me, that this emotion that I carried of anger, because the school teachers turned me into them. These were angry people, Antonella. These were angry people, I got to tell you. So I became them. What I had to do was, if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. Whatever your sword is, it will bring you down eventually. And just in your life, I'm talking just even in a metaphysical way, even it can bring you down, destroy you.
Yeah.
So I was able to get myself into an emotional place whereby one particular school teacher, who I just can't tell you what I wanted to do with this guy when I was growing up. I mean, it was horrific. I would vomit going to school thinking of this guy. Every day was fear forever. I just wanted to get my own back with him. So I was taking it out on life, but I needed to take it out on him. So I realized that he's my charge. I got to go solve my anger issues with him. Mm-hmm. So I decided to do it. I was 23 when I decided to do that. So I prepared myself, and to quell this anger, I knew what I had to do. So I went back to my school in inner city Dublin, and I asked for. When I walked into my school hallway, I remember really well meeting my English teacher, and as she walked down the hallway towards me, I knew exactly who she was. I was out of school 8 years. She knew exactly who I was. She knew I was one of the Behans, and I remember asking her, where is this particular teacher? And she told me that he was, anyway, she told me where he was. I won't go into too much detail because I just don't want that name revealed. But she told me where he was. Mm-hmm. So I went to the classroom where he was teaching. I sat outside the door on a single chair. And it was like the chair was there for me. And I'd been to that school for years. Never saw a chair outside that door, but I got to that door and there's a chair. And now I'm on my journey already. And the school bell rang and all the kids came running out of the class. I knew exactly what they were running from. And next of all, he walked out. He was a tall guy. This guy's a big man, tall guy. And I'm ready now. This is it. And he just looked at me and he knew exactly who I was. He knew exactly what was going on and he knew why I was here. And you could just tell by the expression on my face, I would imagine, gave away the story. And sadly, my mind went blank. And but I'd done what I was meant to do. My mind just went blank in that moment. But in essence, I can't tell you the foundation of the conversation. And the conversation was that I told him that I fully comprehended and understood why he was being that way when he was being that way. Why he was acting the way he was acting that way. And what it is that he developed within me. And I thanked him and I really meant my thanks. And I thanked him from my heart for his ability to put up with us. And I do remember him talking to me about alcoholism. And I do recall that him and I stood there, and it was really, really intense. I can recall that feeling. And I do, as we stood there, there's no doubt that he had tears in his eyes. I definitely did. And I meant what I said to him. I can't remember the specific words. It was very fuzzy now. And I was quite nervous, to be quite frank about it. And I do remember thanking him from my heart and turning around and walking down the stairs. And I've never seen him ever since that day. And I know that I left that most heavy, destructive emotion on that seat, in that hole, at his feet on that day. And part of the work that we do now is it's meditation. It is quantum physics. It is consciousness. It is based on science. But equally at the same time, it's a very, very heavily based on emotions. And we have to learn how to be able to spot the emotions of destruction and cancel out those emotions of destruction and hand them back to the very thing or people. And we do that through what we call gratitude, combined with meditation. So emotion combined with mind structure. And in doing that, then we get to be able to disconnect ourselves from those long-held negative emotions. And from that then came the thaumaturgy experiment, which kind of proves that. So that was that story. Of how that happened.
Right. So Ray, if people want to get in contact with you, maybe to, find out more, or, they might be having the same kinds of difficulties, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So we have a Facebook page, and we've got a closed group Facebook page, and happy for people watching to come into that Facebook page. And there's a series of questions to ask. We want to make sure we're bringing people into our group who are aligned with what it is that we're doing. We don't want people in there to do anything outside of that. And in being aligned with that, they just answer a series of questions. I think there's 3, and it just says, how did you come across Ray or whatever? And they just answer the question. I watched an interview with Antonella, and that group on Facebook is called Inner Circle Insight, INSIGHT 2050, 2050. So Inner Circle Insight 2050. And then we've got the main Facebook page, which is Ray Behan Education. And then we have a website where people can get our meditations. And our business is called Think and Grow Education. So it's www.thinkandgroweducation.com.au, and our meditations can be downloaded and purchased in there. And we're building new meditation libraries at the moment, which are really inspiring. We've got a whole new meditation around going back to the past, to where you don't want to go, connecting with that person, seeing what they gave you, finding gratitude in that, and getting rid of that emotion. And the thaumaturgy experiment that we run at our workshops is whereby we weigh our participants, our workshop participants, at our 3-day intensive workshops, and we weigh them before they do this gratitude meditation. Now, I would think that the science would say that if we have been able to remove an emotion from our body, a long-held toxic negative emotion, and emotions are chemicals. So chemicals, if I remove a bag of chemicals from somebody's body, I have to have mass. Mass has weight, so we can weigh mass. So we decided we're going to test this. So we started to test it at our meditation, at our intensity workshops. And we would weigh our participants and our guests before they'd done the gratitude meditation. And then we would ask them not to speak to anybody, to stay in that state of being, to stay in that emotional place after the meditation, where they tell us, I feel lighter. I feel like a shift. I've shifted my life. Okay, well, let's weigh you and see if there's any variance between how you weighed before you came in and before you and afterwards. And the greatest weight loss that we've had so far within a 24-hour period was 1.7 kilos. And the average weight loss that we see in that 1 hour and 30 minutes is 300 grams to 500 grams, which equates, I think, to half a kilo. And we've had people lose a kilo in 1 hour and 20 minutes in that meditation. And that was the moment, again, that supported what we're doing works.
Because people literally, they lighten up. They actually become more light.
They become more correct. They turn energy, they turn matter into energy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And obviously another way to get in contact with you is to actually come to our workshop in April. So details are on my Facebook page if you're interested. And finally, Ray, tell us, if you had one piece of advice you could give everybody listening today, what would it be?
Sure. It would be to get in and start doing the work. And the moment that your doubter comes up, embrace them, love the doubter, welcome them into your life, do the work in any event, and just play around with this thing they call quantum physics so that you can adapt yourself into the world called quantum mechanics, which is the mechanics that teaches how to change your life by changing your mind. And in doing all of that, embrace it to the level and keep doing it until the universe speaks back to you and says, I've heard your message. Here's your new reality.
Great, great advice, Ray. Thank you, Ray, for your time today. And as I say, if anyone wants to come along and see Ray in the flesh, we've got our upcoming live workshop in April in Perth, and we've also got some online workshops coming up as well, which I'll be putting some information up on Facebook soon about them.
Those if those online workshops, Antonella, that is Australia, East Coast, from memory, Europe, at the European time, and the US, which is the East Coast of the US.
That's correct. All right, great, Ray. Well, thanks for your time again, and we'll see you soon.
Pleasure. Love being here. Thanks so much. I love sharing my story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.